Hello, welcome pen and ink friends. Especially ink friends, don't think I've forgotten about you. I'm back with another single inks profile. And today it's going to be a beautiful blue-green Lamy crystal Amazonite. And it is gorgeous. And there is a lot to show you. So let me put it in the bath test here. And we will learn from it. I'm pretty sure from the chromatography what's going to happen. But I'll show you that in a second. Okay, here we go. We'll just let that work while we're talking. And then we're hopping into the Rhodia Gold book, my ink journal, which is so close to finish now. Any day now I'll be doing the video flip through of this. But here we are. Now, just really quick, the last ink was Robert Oster Cherry Blossom that I profiled. And the water test, you saw it on camera, it was completely gone. So it was very, very typical, and there was no question about it. It was completely gone. So I lost the little paper, and I know it's going to turn up when I do a deeper cleaning, but it has gotten away from me. So here we are with the Lamy Crystal Amazonite, and it is just gorgeous. It's got a red sheen that forms around, or an edging that forms around on the Tomoe River paper. You're going to see that throughout the other samples. It's just gorgeous. I found that it was available lots of places, but I liked it at Pen Chalet. 4 mil sample was $2.75. I always recommend a sample. And then they actually, right at the moment last night, which would have been, okay, that would have been July 1st, the evening of July 1st, 2019, they had it on sale. But the regular price for 30 mils is $16. But there's no telling. You might want to just check if you're really into this one, because they had it on sale. And then Anderson Pens had a 3 mil sample for $2.25. I like the larger samples. I really do like having at least 3 mil. That's not required. I can do a profile, or I can examine an ink with 2 mils, but it helps a lot. Okay, so this is all in the broad nib and the Serendipity, and I saw lots of shading in every sample. On all the papers I saw shading. Even when we got into some of those drier papers, those odd papers, and you'll see. And then here it is in the fine nib. I scrawled some notes because this ink really did impress me. I have plenty of inks in this category, so I wouldn't be in the market right now. But the shading was excellent. The saturation was nice and dark, like I like it. The price was a little high, but it still wouldn't really totally discourage me if I didn't already have some ink just that looks so much like it. The availability's good. It had some complexity, which you'll see later in the art journal entry. And then, well, I don't know yet about cleaning out, because I'm still writing letters with this, and that's kind of my habit of continuing with the inks that I really like. My closest comparable is Colorverse Gravity Wave, which I do have a bottle of, and we'll be looking at that in a little bit. In fact, let's look back on it now, because I can flip back and I can tell you that Gravity Wave is so similar. It's got that red sheen that forms, but it seems more saturated. It's a little bit darker, but it's right in that same color family, and I can see why I really like the Lamy Amazonite. I'm not sure if I'm even saying that right, because of how I fell hard real fast for Colorverse Gravity Wave. Okay, then a little bit lighter was Ferris Wheel Press Bluegrass Velvet, but boy, does it remind me of this ink. So you've got those options of going darker or lighter. You can go darker with that Colorverse, and you can go a little bit lighter with the Ferris Wheel Press. So there's that. And just a quick glimpse, because there's full profiles on both of those. Okay, without further ado, let's get into the notebooks. The first one is the CVS Caliber 4x6, which I'm after another one. I'm going to go look for one. I have a bigger one that I'm using for something personal, but I'm going to run out of this, and I want this for the channel. So here it is. It did that same number. Even on this really cheap CVS Caliber paper, it gave a nice red edging, and I'm trying to hold it so you can see it. Let's see. It tried to go through, but it's just basically a heavy shadow, and none of the writing did. This is a phenomenal paper, actually. And then you still get shading. It's a little more subtle on this paper, but around those number signs or hashtags, you can see it. And then here's the fine nib. I did make a comment. It's a little dry on this paper coming out of the Lamy fine nib. That's, it doesn't take a detective to figure that would happen. And then we did still get that red sheen on this paper. So next up is the Littlemore Amin. This came from Daisico store. I love this paper. It's real smooth. And we get some red sheening or edging and a lot of complexity there, a lot of range in the color. This was coming out of the paintbrush, and then here's the broad nib and the fine nib. No problems there. It didn't feel too dry. And no bleed through at all, so that was nice. Okay, then here is the Loystrim 1917 dot grid. I always test on this because of my bullet journaling. I'm a daily bullet journaler, and I still am using the Loystrim for right now, even though I've got another notebook that's tempting me, that Exceed notebook from Walmart. That could really make me less worried about using up a bunch of paper because it's so much cheaper. But we'll see. So lots of shading on this paper, real intense shading, and but at the same time, it tried to bleed through. Let me see. I had a pencil somewhere here. I guess I don't. I'm trying to be smart, and I can't find my pencil. I just watched a video by one of my friends, Adam. He's called an ink guy, and I loved how he circled where the ink went through on the back of the paper. So anyway, my pencil has gotten away from me, but it did kind of go through. Not horribly, but I think you could probably even see it. So that I'd have to watch out, even with the Lamy fine nib. So it's a high intensity ink, saturated real good. So I wrote down a little bleed through on this paper. That's good for you guys to know if you're into Loystrim. You might even need an extra fine nib. Okay, so this is Live Notes by Pen Gallery. And it's 68 GSM Tomoe River paper. And here we go. Here it is. Nice shading on here. Nice shading. And it did go ahead and show its colors. It didn't flatten out on here. You notice how Robert Oster Cherry Blossom kind of did, but this really can't help itself. It has to show you a variation on this paper. There's nice shading here. And let's flip back. Okay, well, this is the broad nib, and you could see right around those hashtags, lots of shading. And here's the fine nib. I did have a little accident. I was bringing over a pot of water to paint with, and I dripped onto here. So that, it just kind of, that was terrible. Okay, I had a little bleed through just where I painted on, but this paper was great. It didn't bleed through, with the writing. So I'm going to keep it here, and we're going to hop onto Tomoe River paper, 52 gram, the white paper. Things are looking really blue on here, but I've got a lighting situation, I think. Keeps changing. That's why I always recommend a sample. Okay, excellent shading here in the broad nib and good shading in the fine nib. So that was really nice. This is my preferred letter writing paper, so I always pay attention to what happens on here. And then we had partial bleed through where it's painted on. Not much of a big deal, though. I don't mind that at all. Okay, let's just compare them side to side since we've been doing that. Okay, so there really isn't a whole lot of difference there, I don't think. I think you'd be really happy with it on either Tomoe River paper, especially if you like shading. You really would be happy with it, but that's an opinion, of course. You get a lot of those around here. Okay, here's Clairefontaine 90 gram French rule. And I can see that red sheen coming out and a lot of complexity there. And good shading. This is excellent paper. I'm falling more for this paper lately. I didn't like it before. Now I'm thinking, geez, I wasted all that notebook. But it's okay because I'm learning from it. Here's the fine nib. Lamy fine nib. Good shading. Not as drastic as in the broad nib, of course. Let's turn that over. Absolutely no bleed through. So you see, you get up on those finer papers and you don't have so much trouble. you know, the Loystrim, it can bleed through because it's not as thick and not as strong. Okay, here's the Rhodia 80-gram dot pad, and we do get red sheen, and you know, kind of like a nice little edging there. Plenty of shading. I really like that. Shading is one of my favorite attributes of ink. Here's the broad nib and the Lamy fine nib. You still have shading in this, but if I slowed down, I got more. If I wrote my normal pace, I didn't get as much. So, and you know, I do write fast. No bleed through at all here, so. Okay, this is the last paper sample. This is Georgia Pacific 20-pound copy paper. Real cheap, and oh boy, it does change things. It kind of flattens out on here, and we get all kinds of feathering. Let's see if you could see that. It definitely feathers in the broad nib, but that's pretty common. And then it improves a little in the Lamy fine nib. Let's turn it over though. Oh, wow. That surprises me. There's not as much bleed through or show through on this paper as the Loystrim. That doesn't make sense even. But I only see a couple little dots, and they're not significant at all. That's weird. Okay. Maybe our weather. All right, let's peek in on this and see. Okay, that's just what I thought. You see that gray, dark base or pigment there, and you've lost all the color, but you can still read what it was written there. Okay, now for the panel. Let's look at the comparison inks. Oh, I hope this is gonna... Yeah, this could be a little tricky because I meant to test it out ahead of time. At least get it semi-straight for you. Okay, probably not centered, but that's okay. Okay, here's the Lamy Crystal, today's ink, right in the middle. And this was fun. This was super fun to pull these all out. And like I said, I did notice that to my eye, Colorverse Gravity Wave, it's not looking the same through the camera as it is to my eye. That really frustrates me. But it seems to be a dialing up of the darkness and saturation of the same shade. And then down here, the Ferris Wheel Press Bluegrass Velvet seems to be going just a little tad in the opposite direction. So that was really interesting to me. And I was fascinated by J. Arbonne Emerald of Chivor, how much it resembles it on the surface. Now, that's a shimmer ink, and I'm not sure if you'll be able to even see that. I can here. I could see the little gold flakes in there. But, so you can't really compare them, and yet I noticed that if you like this, I think you would definitely like the color of Amazonite. That's for sure. And then I've got two down here that lean more toward green. You know, when you talk about blue-greens, these Robert Oster Tranquility and Diamine Aurora Borealis, they veer over toward green more. But they still kind of appeared on this panel, made me think of it, even though they're quite green. And then up here, Diamine Steel Blue, that goes in the opposite direction. That makes me think more of blue, and so does Robert Oster Fire and Ice. And then Pilot Iroshizuku Kujaku, that surprised me too. I felt like it was a lot closer to the Amazonite than I expected it would be. So these, if you can't tell, this color group, even when you go over into the green and when you lighten up and go toward the blue, it's some of my very favorite colors. So it was a lot of fun doing this, and really, really meaningful. Because the thing about it is, the Lamy Crystal ink, I've noticed it comes in that 30 ml bottle instead of the 50 ml that the other Lamys come in. So, and they cost more. So, you know, I really wanted to study and see, well, gee, how can we, you know, what compares, and is this really, really good? And yes, if I didn't have already Colorverse Gravity Wave, which covers me in that color, and the Bluegrass Velvet, I would be clamoring for a bottle of the Crystal Amazonite, because it's gorgeous, it shades well, and it's really saturated, and those are things I love. Okay, so one more thing, which is the visual journal. And I found it had some complexity, which made it even more fun than usual, because you can see where that base that we saw in the this bath test, you know, it kind of comes out and gives you some variation in where it hits the water, and then when it starts to dry, you have all that base color there coming out. That's neat. And then you've got the really bright kind of turquoise coming out, which just, you can't beat it. You've got a lot of variety, and that's what I like in these. In other words, this is just a quick test, but I would play around with this again and try to really manipulate it better and maybe end up with a little scenery. And I was happy with this tree, and I was kind of happy with the way it looked over here too. So, but this is just a quick test. And then this kind of petri dish looking, oh my goodness, looking one went all crazy. Kind of looks almost like a shell there, and it just shows you lots of variety. So that's what I found out, and I just really enjoyed studying this ink. And oh gosh, I forgot to say thank you to Pen Friend, whose initials are KS, for sending me this sample. That is not looking right. It looks too blue as I'm showing you this one. Oh, that. Okay, let's get out the panel again, because that was a little closer, but still look blue. So what do you think of this ink? I find it very, very pretty. And we're not centered. We're not anything. Let me try to adjust it. It's pretty, and I've said probably more than enough already. But I wanted to add in one more thing as I close. I wanted to kind of go over my goal. My goal in doing these videos, the ink profiles, is to show you enough about the ink so that you can decide whether you want to try a sample. Because I do recognize that lighting, camera, all kinds of things affect how these inks look. And we get the closest when we start comparing, because maybe you have one and you can say, okay, it's pretty close to that one, and I know what that one looks like. But I do always recommend a sample if it's at all possible. Get a sample. And I can't say that enough, because I just really believe that. And I made a mistake a couple times and didn't. So, okay, that's it for today. Let me know in the comments what you thought of Lamy Crystal Amazonite. And if you have any things that would help you more to decide whether you want a sample, throw them in the comments. I'm always open to change and you know, or additions or subtractions or whatever to what we show. And that's how we got where we are now, is a lot of people did input, and some days I'm better than others at going ahead and starting up a new thing. But I always make notes and keep track and try to aim for anything that will help you decide whether or not you want to try the inks. So have a great day, and I'll see you on the next video. Bye for now.